having Labor return, I think it's just showing its pathway to socialism is just becoming clearer and clearer. And very disappointed that this was Liberals' election to lose, and they're out of the picture completely. I think that really does show the temperature of the uni party that we can evidently see. So I'm really concerned about our country. I'm really concerned about the time frame that we just don't have. And that is the reason why I stepped up, because it's not 2028, it's now. We need now. We need people to understand how our election process works. We need people to understand what true representation they should be expecting and to demand it.
Absolutely.
So with People First, with Jared Rennick's People First, we need this voice to be able to grow, even though there's not a parliamentary representation at the moment. It is now up to us to be the lobbyist for ourselves.
Here today we're talking with Jody Clune. Jody lives in Port Hedland, and she is the WA representative for the People First Party and Jared Rennick. And we're very excited about that, because that means we've got a new, honest and transparent politician in our midst, and potentially we could have a very good leader in the future. So we're working, where we hope we're going to be working towards the next election, and we want to make people aware of what the People First Party is about, what they want to do for the people, and how that's going to happen. So Jody, how are you going?
Well, thank you.
Yeah, that's good. We're sitting here at the lovely Cottesloe. I can't remember what it's called. It's gorgeous with the beautiful day. Yeah, a little bit of a breeze, but other than that, it's good. Yeah,
that has been good. So thank you for having me here.
Pleasure.
And thanks for the warm welcome. Western Australia has really received People First, really with open arms, which has been really quite exciting. So both Madison King and myself, when we did the Senate run just in this last election, it was a late start. But out of the frustration that we saw for the WA people, and they were looking for someone to step up to the mark and to represent them, and I think that really showed the need for a new voice, for a voice, and Jared Rennick has been a great voice for Australia, and the way that we've been received here in WA really just shows that it's needed. So looking forward to moving it forward and having that presence grow here in WA in the next 3 years. So it's been exciting.
Yeah, well, we certainly need the time. It was it's quite rapid from him when he became an independent after being let go from the Liberal Party. So becoming an independent and then trying to retain the things that he needed to in order to move on, and then starting the party quite close to the election. But he had a fantastic response, I have to say. Definitely. And I don't know anybody that doesn't align with what he was talking about. And I don't know how many people are aware that you can get online and you can watch what happens in the Senate, and you can listen to these politicians and to what they say, what you understand then what their knowledge base is, and you see how other politicians behave in response to them, and it's actually appalling.
It's very woeful.
And we're paying for these politicians to be in cabinet and in parliament and supposedly listening to each other in order to attain an outcome on certain subjects. And if they don't like what you're talking about, they get up and leave, or they're playing on their phone. Are the general public aware of this?
I don't think so. I mean, when you are watching the Senate estimates and you're looking at question time, and when you're seeing these intelligent questions come out that are backed up with facts, as he's been doing, and then they literally turn their back. This is where I think the Australian people are frustrated, because when they turn their back on what Jared Rennick has been saying, they're turning their back on the rest of us.
Absolutely.
The Australian people are asking these questions. They're valid questions. They are to do and affect our everyday life. And the simple fact that the rest of the cabinet turns their back or walks out is not appropriate, you know.
Not
And
at
I
all.
think we've all had enough, absolutely just had enough, and we need to raise the bar. And I think, you know, having new, fresh people stepping into the plate, stepping up and just being able to say, if you guys are going to continue this behaviour, well, there's those of us who are going to step into the ring and change what we're seeing, because this needs to have true representation return to the Australian people.
Yeah, that's very true. And Jared certainly does that. And the amount of knowledge he has about every subject that I've ever heard him talk about is insanely good. You know, he really knows what he's talking about, and he can challenge anyone. And that would be not just on our national stage, that would be on an international stage as well. He's very, very well informed on everything he speaks about. He
really is.
So tell us about, I know one of his favourite platforms is the tax issue.
Yes.
So tell us about that, because, you know, we all know that we don't need to be paying as much tax as we do, and there's certainly issues and areas in the economics of nationally of the country where tax could be being made on corporations or areas. That means that we don't have to pay that much tax.
And I think that's really becoming more and more evident. You know, at first I think there was a lot of where taxes aren't being paid by huge multinational corporations. That is now coming to light. We've got the royalties. You know, that is not definitely reflecting what's being taken out of our country. We are such a wealthy nation. We have got so many resources that we are now the laughing stock of the world because we do not reflect that. You know, we've got homelessness in Australia that is just at unacceptable levels and rising. You know, we've got shelters that are full and overflowing. So let's take that back and go, well, why is the Australian individual taxpayer being taxed up to 47% of their earnings? And yet we have multinational corporations that are minimal, you know, if they're paying tax at all. And I think one of the scenarios that Jared Rennick does speak about is how, you know, we've got a couple of the multinational corporations that are then doing a little bit of shuffling of paperwork. They send it over to Ireland that has a lower tax rate. And, you know, they're circumnavigating around their responsibilities to the Australian people and to the Australian nation that is providing the income and that profit that they're making. You know, where is the governance on that is...
And where is the information allowing the people to know that that's happening and that's what's being done with their tax dollars?
Absolutely.
Because so much moving around of what's happening happens behind the scenes. And so the general public is completely unaware. It's not told of the very important things that are going on and the way that they are being basically misused. All of their money is being misused. So
I think one of the questions that really came out around this last election is where is the money going? Why are we in a crisis of living? You know, where is the housing market? Why is that being given coupon solutions? You know, when it is now our generation coming through feels that is unattainable. You know, we need to bring that back into reach, and that's where I think coming back to what Jared Rennick has been speaking about, his policies on, you know, changing the tax-free threshold. You know, we're looking at low-income earners. Why aren't we not supporting them and raising them for their ability to be tax-free from 18 to 40,000? What would a huge difference that would make? You know, you've got a mum that's on her own with her kids. You know, if she's got 40,000 rather than 18,000 to be able to have that tax-free, she's got that pressure taken off where she can actually step up. You know, go and get those extra things that the kids need or that she needs. You know, and that's only one scenario in so many different facets of the Australian people that are lacking right now. We need to address that lack. And, you know, we've got then income splitting is another policy. And it was really good to see that policy is now being taken up by some of the other political groups, which is good to see because it's a great policy. And I think it's one, if we're able to get that implemented, would make a massive change to everyday households. And to be able to allow them to get ahead. We do need tax reform. The system is broken, it's unjust, it's unbalanced, and we really do need to have this conversation on a wide scale to be able to really find solutions and start implementing these solutions. We can talk about things, but we need to get to the stage where we're implementing things.
Yeah, well, there seems to be a lot of talking, a lot of talking by the leaders of our country. And I think we would probably see that as they're attempting to lead, but they're not doing a very good job. We know that they lie about things. We know that they don't really want the people to know what it is that they're doing, and so they go about it really covertly. So with the tax situation, if we can make bigger corporations pay the tax on what it is that they're earning and make that an advantage to the Australian people, I think the Australian people would like that. But do they know that? I think most general people would think that those big corporations are actually being taxed at a rate that is meant to be a proper rate for them, as everyone is. People think that everything's fair or that most things are fair and they're not really being disadvantaged and they have to be able to live. But really, fundamentally, the government is pulling the wool over their eyes.
And I think people are starting to question, the divide is growing.
Yes.
And the unrest is happening, and I think that was very evident in the last election with a lot of people saying, this isn't okay, what do we do about it? And there is a bit of despair out there because, they're not hearing the truth come out. And we're not seeing justice come. So when we're seeing our politicians that are lying, who are promising the world and then not delivering, worst case, they're completely and utterly misleading the people. And they're not being pulled up for it. They're not being made accountable for the words that they're speaking and the commitments that they're making. And I think this is where a lot of Australians are quite disillusioned. It's a case of we need to help Australians to understand the reality. And we need a Doge of our own to be able to get through the lies, and also to have some forensic accounting going on, which I think Jared Rennick would be perfect at, to actually find out where the money's going or where the money has gone, and be able to make those people who are behind those decisions responsible and to actually be accountable to the Australian people and to be able to suffer the consequences. I think if we have that, because we do not have true representation in Australia anymore.
No.
And this is just one way that it is very much highlighted that why, where is our faith in our government? Where is our confidence in our government?
Exactly.
When they continue to turn their back on us.
Yeah, exactly. And that's happening not just at a federal level, that's happening at a state level and a local level.
Yes.
And we're seeing that by how many people are now turning up to council meetings and being told by their local council representatives that they're not really welcome. They loved it before when the people didn't want to arc up and talk to them and come and find out what was going on. They liked it when there was only 5 or 10 people in the audience, and when 100 or 200 or 1,000 people tried to get in the door, they were like, oh, let's get some security and we'll tell them that they're not allowed to be here. So we used to know that certainly happened here in WA.
And once again, where's the representation? Why are you afraid of the people? And if the people are frustrated, they have a right to express that frustration.
Absolutely.
And it's the responsibility of that governing body to hear the voice of the people and to say, righto, what's the problem? Let's address that problem. And I think this is where our leadership in this country has just been self-serving instead of people-serving.
Absolutely.
So when we're looking at council, what is it? The rate's rubbish and rates?
Or recreation?
Yeah. What a joke.
It
They are implementing an administration and they're heading down to CEOs rather than councillors making the decisions, instead of a mayor that's hearing the people of his area which is on a basic life level. You know,
Yeah.
you can't get much more down to earth than a mayor taking care of families, housing. You know, they're at that grassroots. And if they're ignoring at that level, then the state, the federal, you know, it all snowballs through. So, I mean, I would encourage people to be able to get involved with their councils, to be able to get involved with stepping up and putting their hat in the ring to run for councils, because it's at grassroots level that we do need to make sure that we can turn this tide. Because if we don't, and if we don't start stepping up now, then what do we have? You know, do we just continue to hand our responsibility and our governance to these people who are just self-serving? You know, it's time for us to step up as individuals, put our hat in the ring, and to let them know that we deserve change, and we're demanding a change now.
Well, I think we've found here, particularly locally, we've had mayors of councils, a mayor particularly, as state that she's not here to do what the people of her locality want her to do. She's here to do what the state government tell her to do. And, well, you would have had the exact same thing with Port Hedland after you had the experience of putting forward the Port Hedland motion, that now the WA government are seeking to dissolve the Council of Port Hedland because, how terrible, the people wanted the council to stand up for them in an issue. So to have, as I said before, in the past we would have had 10 or 20 people come to a council meeting. Now we have a mayor saying, well, we can't have you coming here and telling us that you want us to do things because we're not going to do them for you. Well, I believe that we as the people should be able to stand up and say, well, I'm sorry, you must resign your position because unfortunately your role is to look after the people of your locality. And as you say, we want people to stand up and try to get involved in local council. Are they selling their souls? Are they selling their souls in order to be in that position and then end up in a state government that's even worse and then a federal government that's worse again?
And that is my concern. I definitely think you've hit the nail on the head there, and I do think we need to have that conversation, you know, on every level. So, for instance, in Port Hedland Council, the issues within, they're spending money at the moment trying to get a new CEO, because we've got only an acting CEO. Right. The amount of money that they are pouring into just coming up to getting to that starting place to take the resumes and to get that sorted is just unacceptable. Sure. We've also too got the issue where in Port Hedland, you know, they are having conversations where the people are stepping up and saying, you're a council, and they're trying to come out from an administrative. So this is where does the state stop and start? And obviously council is not just about your rates and rubbish. You know, obviously they are pulling in state mandates. They are, you know, mouthpieces for our state government. And that is a really dangerous position to be in, I feel, especially when, you know, we are having it pass the buck. We're all stepping up and going into our council meetings, but, you know, we've got to go to state, and then we go to state and we've got to go back to council. And once again, it comes down to representation. You know, a mayor has a specific job. Why are they changing that meaning? Why are they changing what that looks like?
Yeah, exactly.
So that then it's very, you know, just is not got the weight it once had. Where do we go to have our resolution? Well, I mean, we're rocking up to the meetings.
Yeah, to try to affect change. Yeah,
don't come in. Like how
is that able to happen? Well, I was told that recently that my local council, if I was to go to speak there, I'm not actually allowed to talk about any facts.
Oh, wow.
So,
seriously?
Yeah, so no factual evidence is allowed to be put into play in the presentation that I might want to do.
Yep.
So that is just bizarre.
Look, and I think this comes down to the reality that people need to understand. As we are walking into a world that is relying more and more on litigation, that is relying more and more on you know, make sure that you're covering and taking responsibility, and we can't get, it's very much a roundabout of policies and procedures that no one's accountable for.
No.
You know, you can't pin anybody down anymore to say, look, you are responsible for XYZ, and so therefore I'm coming to you. Can we please now get this done?
Yeah.
You know, and this comes down to representation again.
Agreed. Yeah. So I think exactly accountability is one of the main things that has to happen with government at every level, and I think Jared Rennick has been trying to do that,
yes,
along with a very small group of other people, is to make our government accountable to the decisions that they're making, because a lot of those decisions that are being made aren't decisions that benefit the people, and they're decisions that people don't know about. So let's take, for example, the WHO, the recent international health regulations that have recently been passed by our government, which I believe was voted in by 35% of the people, you know, saying, oh, wow, that was a great win. Yeah, 35% of the people means that 65% of the people don't want you there.
Yep.
You don't have the right to make a decision on our behalf in such a full-on regard. The WHO and the international health regulations are a very serious situation that this government has signed us up to, and we will lose our rights in regard to that.
Absolutely, and I think this is where we're getting onto technicalities.
Absolutely.
So, for instance, as a country, we will not lose our sovereignty, but as we saw with the pandemic, the federal government kept our sovereignty, but handed the states over to say mandate away.
Yeah.
And then at the end of it, you know, it was your choice. You had to take responsibility for what you took or what you didn't take, and your stand that you had or you did not have. People have lost their lives, people have lost their homes, people are now disabled. You know, it is just the worst scenario that I think Australia has ever seen. Jared Rennick has been standing up in the Senate asking the questions of why did the TGA hide the truth of what these medical interventions were.
And we know the truth now because all the evidence has come out.
Is the evidence being accepted?
No.
You know, and this is the issue, once again, representation.
Government is choosing to not look at it, not take it seriously, and not become accountable for the decisions that they made.
Yes. Yeah. Yep, absolutely. And we're still asking for a Royal Commission. We're still asking for those who have placed us into this situation that, you know, we've got a crisis of living, yet we're doing corporates for the medical industry is just made billions of dollars out of us. We now have manufacturing that is set up, but yet all the other manufacturing sectors have been taken offshore. You know, let's look at
why?
The reality.
Yeah, tell us why.
Yeah.
Show us exactly why you're doing this and what the advantages are to the Australian people for doing it this way.
And when we really look at the World Health Organization's pandemic treaty, that is, to me, when I look at the numbers and I look at what that entails, and look, because we've had a lot of pushback and the people across the globe has said no, it is actually a watered down version of what it originally wanted to be.
Yes.
Thank the Lord for that.
Yeah.
But it's a business deal.
Yep.
It's all about dollars and cents.
Yep.
You know, it's got nothing to do with our health. It is all about how can you have as much medication as you can to be able to get well healthy.
Yes.
You know, why are you sick in the first place?
Yeah, exactly.
There really needs to be a lot of question going on.
Yeah.
And the way that then this treaty has already started altering Australian legislation and Australian regulations. And this is the side door approach that when we're looking at a sovereignty of Australia, that's not going to be touched. Fair, that's fantastic. But what's going on at a state level, you know, what's going on, I mean, even in our council, Port Hedland Council, for instance, if you go to their health page, the first sentence actually refers back to the World Health Organization.
Yeah.
So there's a clear correlation going on there, and we're not allowed to address that, you know, that's not appropriate.
Well, no. Well, the former chairperson of the J. Scott Committee, Josh Wilson, said, well, no, we have sovereign right over all of the health issues. No, the World Health Organisation, we're not contracted to them. They don't tell us what to do. So you open up the first page of the example you've given the Port Hedland Council, and here it's all about the World Health Organisation.
Exactly.
How's that? I believe Josh Wilson has stepped down from that position.
Yes, he has.
However, we do understand that in signing up to the WHO and these new international health regulations, that there were a number of parliamentarians that had no idea of what the information was that was actually being put forward.
That's true.
By the World Health Organisation. Yeah. And when they did have a look at it, they were astounded
yes.
at what the Australian government was signing the people up to. But it was too late. They weren't able to stop the government from signing the country up to that treaty. And we only have now a matter of days before anything can happen, even though we're already signed up. And I believe it takes effect next year.
So yeah, there's two parts.
Yes.
So we've got the World Health Organisation's Pandemic Treaty.
Yep.
So that actually had the majority of that document was signed by Australian counterparts at the World Health Assembly this last May. Now there is actually one amendment, so it is actually not a done deal with the Pandemic Treaty. They do have one amendment that they are still negotiating.
Okay.
Once they've negotiated that, then that obviously has to get put out for feedback and conversation, and they are looking to have that ready to confirm the whole document at the next World Health Assembly next May, and then it'll have to go through a ratification process.
That's right. Yep.
So talking to your MPs, talking to your senators at length, getting that treaty, highlighting your points of concern on that treaty, and putting it in front of them and having the conversation of, can you please explain to me why this is going to affect my life?
Right.
Let's get it down and have those personal conversations, because right now we've got the second part of the treaties, which is the international health regulations. So that had amendments that were agreed to last year at the World Health Assembly, and that is actually adding to the effects. So if we don't have our Prime Minister sign us out of that by the 19th of July, which is very soon, then on the 19th of September, those international health regulation amendments are going to come into effect, and that will change our way of life. Small ways, but as we know, a ship just needs to be changed 1% to go in a completely different direction.
Yep.
Now that is on top of the 2021 amendments that we had put into Australia. Now, what are we seeing from that? Well, we've got One Health policy. Biosecurity laws have now been altered. We've got mis and disinformation laws that we've been working very hard to reject, and now we've got we had last November, the mis and disinformation in its entirety was thrown out that bill. However, they backed that up with several others. This year we will be seeing the implementation of the social media under 16 bill, which really I need to ask, is it about our 16-year-olds?
Exactly.
Or is it about the digital ID that we all now have to be able to have social media?
Which is unbelievable in a country that supposedly has free speech, freedom of information, and all the other freedoms that supposedly go with it.
The frightening part for me was when I was watching last year the actual World Health Assembly conversations. You watch the live broadcast. When they could not get the World Health Organisation's documents up because the Globe got together and said, no thank you. He was a really interesting conversation that you can go back and listen to. The Director General, Ted Ross, actually really call out all of the state members and require them to get their mis and disinformation laws up to speed. So that's one man, and then at the end of that year we saw all of these other coming into this, and this is what I'm talking about. This is my catch cry to say, guys, we need to be aware of what they're trying to do and why are they trying to do this. And
again, it's behind the scenes.
That's right.
Is the general public being made aware that we've got an international unelected body telling our federal government that they need to do this so that these other things can happen behind the scenes? And our government is, say how high, we'll jump, you know.
So what does sovereignty really mean in this changing climate?
Yeah.
And I think, once again, this system is broken.
Absolutely.
How do we put back to pieces a completely shattered system? You know, we really need a lot of reform. It's got to come back down to that representation, and that's why we need now, in our political state, we need that water table to be brought back up.
Absolutely.
And we need to have people holding our MPs, our senators, on every level to account, and letting them know that this is not okay, that we've got our eye on you. And when it comes around to the next election, hey, are you going to be ready to put your hat in the ring and have your voice of reason to bring back representation into our nation?
Sure. Well, we know that Jared Rennick really does put the people first.
Yes.
It was inspiring to watch him really come to the fore in those months prior to the election, and how many people got behind him. And you're absolutely right. People want change, and in fact, we need change. We cannot go through to the future, say 2030, 2035. Under the same conditions that we are now. You know, and like you say, we've got all of this excessive, probably fraudulent spending, while we've got people living on the streets, and we've got our health system in disarray, etc., these things. And I think right now in WA they're spending X billions of dollars on some new stadium of some sort, whilst they've got all of these people who are living in the streets. So where is the priority? How come there is money to do that?
Yes.
For entertainment of the masses, and there's not the money to help the people who really need it.
Yep.
So I'm really excited about Jared Rennick and the People First Party. I think it's amazing that he's starting again right now, so soon after the election, because this is what didn't happen the last time, is the people who wanted to make a difference then, who did make a difference at that time, and again in a short amount of time. We've tried that, at the last election, but there was a lag of people coming back into it. Now, we were in a very precarious time in COVID, where all sorts of awful human rights were being trampled upon. And so it was very difficult. But we now have someone, Jared, in a position of knowledge of the inside, knowing what it's like to be standing there in front of those people being vilified. I'm sorry to say, Jared, but thick-skinned enough to take that, and I'm sure that that's not always the way, because, I said to Jody earlier about, I'm sure you go home at night and go, oh my God, what am I doing? But, however, having someone who is just so across everything, who's articulate, who is intelligent beyond any leader that we have up there at the moment, and who would stand up for the people. I'm really excited about that coming.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important that WA People First, Jared Rennick's People First for WA does move forward. I think the expressions that I've had given to me is this does need to grow.
Absolutely.
That voice does need to be cemented into WA. And, looking at what does that look like on a state level as well. Yeah. We've just had the last state elections, as you know, where our regions were taken away. So once again, representation. So I think it is time, and people are frustrated, and I just want to encourage them to not lose hope, because it is up to us. And if we can individually just find that hope within us and find our resilience to stand back up and say, actually, we're going to be putting you on notice. Yep. We are going to be joining in and bringing our voices together so that People First WA can actually, really start to turn the tide come 2028 and 2029 when we're able to step up again.
And in fact, they work for us. So they've got to do what we want them to do. Otherwise, they're not going to be there.
That's exactly right.
So now we've got this time, and we're going to push forward to get Jared right out there, so that more and more people know about the People First Party.
Definitely. So, we've got the website. Jump onto the website. Join the membership. Become a member of Jared Rennick People First. We've got the Western Australia branch that's going to be coming together. So if you'd like to drop an email to wa@peoplefirstparty.au, and join the voice together. Let's you're going to have to cut that out because I just completely whooped that up.
Hey, did you enjoy this video? Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. And also, go and jump onto the People First Party website. The link is in the description below. I think you'll find some stuff that you'll really enjoy there. Thanks very much. We'll see you next time.
Are you vigilant enough?